Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report. We're back to issues. After all those candidates and all of the excitement of the election, we're going to talk about energy, and we have a guest who has come from Germany to talk with us, and a guest from the University of Minnesota, and of course our old favorite, David Senjem, Senator from Minnesota, who is responsible for the emphasis on renewable energy in Minnesota. Welcome back.
Well, it's good to be here, Jane. That may be a little overstated, but we are trending certainly in the area of renewable energy all over Minnesota. And a lot of people have been involved in that, the legislature and certainly private business and so on and so forth, the utilities and so on. But it's good to be here. And Jane, I want to introduce to you and the audience our guest today. On my right, my immediate right, is Dr. Sabine Engel. Dr. Engel is Director of International Partnerships with the Institute on the Environment with the University of Minnesota. And she has arranged over the course of a number of years policy exchanges to Germany, and I've been a part of those. Have been enormously helpful for me. And also Dr. Harry Lehman. Dr. Lehman is, if you will, head of the Federal Environmental Agency within the Republic of Germany, and he is an individual we've often met with as we've been over in Germany. He's obviously right into this issue. Germany is a country that is really grabbed, if you will, renewable energy and clean environment, and has run with it. And Harry's been at the lead of that, and he's always a guest speaker when we're in Germany, and it's good to have him here in Minnesota.
Good. Okay, now first tell us your connection, your committee connections that bring you into this issue area.
Well, it's I happen to serve on the Legislative Energy Commission, which is a House-Senate body. I also serve on the Senate Energy Committee, and so from a legislative point, that's kind of gets me into this whole theme. But moreover, I've had the opportunity personally to travel to Germany 5 to 6 times, and I've observed firsthand what the German government is doing, what the people of Germany are doing with respect to energy. It's exciting. I've learned a lot from it, both from a political point of view as well as a practice point of view, and so I've been gifted with that opportunity. And I think as we do that, as a legislator, as a citizen, it's my obligation to bring back what we've seen, what we've learned to Minnesota, and where we can apply it, try to apply it, and if you will, push the ball a little bit in terms of moving in a clean energy. Into a clean energy future.
Okay, Dr. Sabine Engel at the University of Minnesota, tell us how your Institute on the Environment got started.
Thank you so much for having us be here. The University of Minnesota's Institute on the Environment is a leader when it comes to thinking about the environment from a cross-disciplinary perspective. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So 10 years ago, people realized that the university apartments are really important, but we need more opportunities to connect across disciplinary boundaries so that chemists talk to physicists more and social scientists. And the University of Minnesota created one of the first institutes on the environments in order to bring people together across disciplines to tackle very complex problems. And in the environment, we have the need to tackle the problems with expertise that comes from a lot of different disciplines. It's a fabulous opportunity for us at the University of Minnesota to have this, and we work with faculty members and students and researchers across the entire university system. So we are not a department, we are an institute. We have about 150 researchers and scientists affiliated with us, and we only do things that go beyond what departments proper do. So our faculty members are at the University of Minnesota Duluth campus, at the Morris campus, the Crookston campus, the University of Minnesota Rochester campus, and the Twin Cities.
Okay, I'll give you a chance to say what kind of jobs your students are prepared for when they finish your course.
They are prepared to go into technical fields or policy fields. They are prepared to go into fields that require people to understand how to ask questions that drive solutions. And sometimes one comes up with an answer to a problem that seems just the right answer. But if you knew a bit more, if you knew more about different disciplines, you would come up with a more complex set of understandings, because you would know what other questions to ask, what other expertise to bring in. And that's the benefit of training students to look at the implications. What we're seeing now in this world that is much more about the environment and complex challenges is all about asking questions and then being able to go to the people with the deep expertise. I believe that our students get that kind of training.
Okay, Dr. Harry Lehman, is the German Federal Energy Agency a new department?
No, it's an environmental agency, not energy agency. We are a scientific, independent advisory agency to the government, to the parliament, and to the public. So the idea, as the agency was founded 43 years ago, was that a democratic region like Germany needs information, needs enough independent information to make decisions. So that is the idea of the agency, and we are a huge amount of people, 1,500 people working on all different problems and solutions for the environment.
Okay, all right. Now, what do you hope to accomplish in Minnesota in the next, 2 days? Or are you here longer?
I'm no longer young until Wednesday here, so it's 1 week. And inform, continue networking. I think one of the important things is that besides the fact that each region can raise its own questions, can start with its own solutions, it's important also to learn one from the other. So it is not only let's say, our example in Germany of 30 years of Energiewende, it's also for us finding ways you are developing different views. So that's the point I'm interested in, learning what is happening in this part of the United States. Second thing I'm interested in is clearly informing the people here what is the actual status of the Energiewende in Germany. There are a lot of fake information running around that we are breaking together and the economy is not running and the poor people have to pay so much for the energy. That's not true. So it's also my job to go to other parts of the world and say, okay, look, these are our monitoring results, this is government data, this is data that is validated, and please use that and not other things.
Okay. Sabine, how does he work into your program as well?
We had the wonderful opportunity at the University of Minnesota in 2011 to start working together with the federal government in Germany when the German energy transition just took off. So the viewers may remember the nuclear accident in Fukushima in 2011. It really changed how the German government and the people in Germany thought about energy. Where should it come from? It should come from renewable resources. And what I had done at the time is I had proposed organizing a policy exchange between the architects then of Germany's energy transition and leaders in Minnesota, because in Minnesota in 2007, Minnesotans decided to lead by example on renewable energy generation and to propose to produce 25% of the electricity through renewable energy resources by 2025, essentially from zero. It was a very daring goal, and people thought at the time, well, why is Minnesota doing this? It was obvious why Minnesota was doing it, because Minnesota needs to import all of the fossil fuels that we use here. We don't have natural gas, we don't have oil, we don't have coal, but we actually do have a lot of sunshine, we do have a lot of wind, that's just there for the taking. Can we use it? So we encountered the federal ministries in Germany and the architects of the energy transition and asked them, what are your experiences? What are the challenges? What are your solutions to the challenges? And Dr. Harry Lehman has been somebody who's been involved in answering those questions in really wonderful ways and not hiding what are the challenges. For us to move forward and to really get to a clean economy, the way the German government wants to achieve the clean economy by 2050, we need to not only talk about the successes, we also need to talk about the challenges and how we create solutions to those challenges. That's really exciting.
We will start talking about the challenges in 1 minute after this question. Will this process of renewable energy make us more vulnerable or less vulnerable to the kinds of terror attacks that we are warned about continually with respect to our utilities?
Less. That's vollkommen clear. We have observed it. If you analyze the situation in Japan, if you analyze the situation in Germany, due to the distribution of supply and production, you are less vulnerable. And we have seen also, if you talk about Fukushima, the first plants which were running again after Fukushima were windmills, which started to stabilize the system. So we know if you manage the grid well, then you are less vulnerable with renewables.
Can I just say something too, Jane? It's like, why am I interested? If the people of Rochester probably don't really know this, but we get our electrical power from Monticello, Minnesota, through a coal-fired power plant up there. That's going to go off, not say offline, but we're going to discontinue doing that in 2030. Likewise, most of Minnesota, perhaps 2/3 of Minnesota, gets their power from the nuclear power stations at both Monticello and Red Wing. They're going to probably be going offline in 2030, 2033. And so where's our power going to come from?
That's my next question.
And so as you go to Germany, it doesn't take you very long to understand that power and where you get your power is going to change. And our energy future is going to change. And so how it changes from a policy perspective is very important to me as a legislator, and I think ought to be important to everyone that perhaps watching this program. We need to start talking about this because energy is changing. How is it going to change, and who's going to participate?
That is news to many people. But one other current event question, and that is Hurricane Michael wiped out a lot of power in Florida. And it is so bad in some areas that say this is not to restore the power, we're going to have to rebuild it. Will that be an opportunity for them to rebuild it in keeping in mind the principles of renewable energy, or is it too soon to do that?
No, it's not too soon. There are several examples, especially in the United States, where after hurricanes, cities build up themselves as climate renewable cities. I don't have it at the moment with me, but in California and some other countries, there are 3-5 cities in the size of 50,000-60,000 persons who completely built up after they were destroyed with buildings which were energy efficient, with renewables, with wind energy and all this. So it's not too late. It's the right time to react on that, making the cities of the future and not the cities of yesterday.
Okay, well, who would drive that?
The cities themselves must do that, because it's if a city rebuilds itself, then it can initiate a process in the city how to do that. And in one of the cities, there was a major, I've forgotten, I met him years ago, and he was sitting there, and he said, I didn't believe how much ideas came from my citizens, and we now have a city which is a city which can show itself as a 100% renewable energy city.
Okay, Sabine, you had something.
There are many cities that are realizing that they can do a lot in order to become more resilient and also to keep some of the money that we spend on energy in the community. So what the University of Minnesota is doing and what's connected to this policy exchange is kind of a practical showcase example exchange, and it's called Climate Smart Municipalities. Senator Senjem is involved in that too. The city of Rochester is involved in that Climate Smart Municipalities exchange. And the idea really is we should learn from each other how to do this, how cities can lead, how cities can come up with solutions that benefit people locally, that keep more energy money in the cities themselves, that enhance the quality of life, that are tied to more technically termed distributed energy generation, where lots of people have solar panels on their roofs and battery storage in their basements or somewhere on their property, and where when we have these weather events that are so destructive, the grid may go out, but because it's so distributed, you actually can bring it back on faster. It's not that one plant is responsible for everything. So the cities can do a lot, and I think looking at the German example, the cities that are doing it there, it's astonishing how much enthusiasm this generates with citizens locally.
So let's talk about the benefits first to the local people. And all we know is that the cost of energy is going up rather rapidly locally, and tell us about the benefits of the renewable energy to the people in this area of Minnesota, southern Minnesota.
If you talk about costs, and if you look at the costs of whatever new plant in 2030 or now, today renewable energies are the most cheap technology which you can use to install technologies. It is the cheapest technology today. And it is the reason of the historical development in Germany and in other parts of the world. Today there is no cost argument, no economic argument against windmills and against photovoltaic. Then grid resilience, grid management. Today we know how to manage a grid in a way that it is resilient and all these other things. So if you care about costs in the future, then you have to invest now in renewables and the efficiency also in buildings and that. And then if you install a photovoltaic, you have clear prices for the next 25 years. That's the lifetime of photovoltaic, or 15 years for wind energy. So that's what is, we have in Germany looked into the prices very in detail, and that's the most cheapest technology at the moment, even with coal, even with all these things, is renewables. So
where does renewable energy come from?
The wind. Renewable is a technology. So you harvest wind, you harvest sun. And the technologies can be produced in the United States, which are done. It can be produced in every country. So you're not dependent on anyone. You only need the technologies. And after you have installed the technologies, you have different lifetime of your technologies. So you're harvesting your local, regional energy potentials. And I know that Rochester has a huge amount of that, because there is a huge amount of wind, there is a huge amount of sun, and so you can do it. And you can do it also in the agricultural sector. There's a lot of chances. And even if you look at the total potential, Rochester or the regions around here can be energy exporting regions, so that they deliver energy to other regions where they need more regions. We have this in Europe. We talk this the land and cities coalition, that cities get the region of the surrounding land area where they have these huge amount of wind and photovoltaic installations.
Okay, one question that comes up from time to time is that all the wind farms that we are developing, are they changing our climate?
No, they are saving our climate, because every wind farm you build up is a piece less of greenhouse gas emissions. And was studied very well, so they don't change climate. And they also don't change weather at a certain part of a city, something like that. If you do it properly, then you have noise impact at certain places. And if you build up a wind farm at a place where you have a lot of species which are endangered, that's not the place to do that. But if you do it properly with a certain distance to all buildings and all these things, you have a technology which is very, from a health point of view, from an environmental point of view, and also from an economic point of view, the best you can get at the moment.
Okay, so let's talk about the challenges. And what's the biggest challenge to instituting a program of renewable energy?
The losers. In Germany, at the moment, we have 40% of electricity coming from new renewables, wind, photovoltaic, and all these things. Clearly, this cuts the income of coal and other utilities. And that's one of the biggest challenges at the moment, that we have to organize, that's in work at the moment, the phase out of coal industry from utilities, because you have to care about the people working there, you have to care about, let's say, people who are dependent of them, etc., etc. So the biggest challenge is this transformation path. This transformation path from a very centralized system to a mixed system of decentralized, etc. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is that there are people that fear that wind energy or other things can harm their health, and infrastructure and all these things. At the moment, we don't see any additional health problems with wind energy. Third challenge is, clearly, if you are in a touristic region, landscapes and all these things, some people say putting windmills in such a region might not be the right solution. But there is enough area all over the world to put windmills at the right place. And then you don't have a challenge or problem of people who say for touristic reasons we want to have these windmills not here. We have observed, not we, the Netherlands, the people in the Netherlands have observed that sometimes the things also go the other way around. If you have a touristic region, the people going there say, no, why don't you have windmills here? Are you not environmental sane? So people are asking for certain installations of photovoltaic and windmills in such regions because they think that a region, if it's environmentally well organized, must have them. So it's and last challenge is knowledge, education, and a strategy. You have to have strategies over years. That's one challenge because you cannot go in and out into such a thing. So you have to have people who is educated, you have to have engineers, all these things. So these are the 4 challenges which I would name.
Okay, go ahead. What do we do first? We have wind farms, we have more wind now than we had like a year or 2 years or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So
continue the path.
The what?
Continue the path in installing renewable energies. The next step will also be probably having a storage system starting, and the next step will be so-called cross-sectoral coupling. What means that? If you have a lot of electricity, then you can heat your house with it, or you can move your car with it, electromobility. Or if you have so much electricity, you even can go and at the refinery, which is south of Minneapolis, you can use it for hydrogen production so that you lower your greenhouse gas footprint of the refinery. So all these means cross-sectoral coupling, and with this together, you can have a cleaner future.
Now we have some solar farms where you have the collectors across acres of land.
I think there's enough roof area, enough parking lots and all these things where you can use that as a photovoltaic system. You don't need to use up agricultural area for introducing photovoltaic. We have that in Germany or in Europe also. We stopped that. We say, okay, only on areas which cannot be used for other purposes. There is one field, but not here, where photovoltaic is mixed together with agricultural production, where the photovoltaic is used as a shadow for the plants, and so you have a dual use of the acre.
Okay. All right. I know you have some comments because you are watching this carefully. Go ahead.
I've looked at Minnesota's energy transition, and what is really remarkable is the speed with which Minnesota has moved towards renewable energy generation. Actually, faster speed than Germany. And at the same time, one of the enabling factors and one of the challenges needs to be commented on. One of the enabling factors was this next generation energy legislation that happened in 2007 that spelled out this long-term strategy. By 2025, the investor-owned utilities need to produce 25% of their electricity through renewable energy generation sources. We are already there. Right now, 26% of Minnesota's electricity is produced through renewable energy. So we are ahead. We are ahead of the goal. Now we need to figure out how to accelerate the pace and how to emerge as winners in this race, because it's a question of generating more and making it more available. What Germany did in order to win the race is they decided anybody can put a solar panel on their roofs. It's just like buying a refrigerator. We can't quite do this here yet.
Our half hour has quickly flown. I have two questions. One is, who builds the collectors and the storage facilities? Is that private enterprise, or is that tax dollars, or what? Because we know where the energy is. It's in the wind and it's in the sun. But how do we turn it into what goes to everybody's house? And I think you've just whet our appetite with more questions. And do you have an email address at the University of Minnesota so people can ask you questions?
We would love to help, and the University of Minnesota is there in order to help the energy transition in the state. And the email is ION-INTL, so ION-E hyphen.
We can put that on the screen, I think, can't we?
At umn.edu. We'd be happy to help answer questions, and
maybe you'll even bring Harry along and have him come for a Rotary meeting or a Kiwanis or one of the public.
And I also want to encourage the viewers in contacting Senator Senjem and the city of Rochester, because in the south of Minnesota, the city of Rochester is part of this alliance of climate smart municipalities, and it takes everybody to get involved. So if you want to get involved in renewable energy issues, please do. It is the future, and it requires everybody to be at the table and to create that future together.
And I know you're going to talk to the Post Bulletin editorial board after this, and so we'll look forward to reading more about it. And Dr. Harry Lehman and Dr. Sabine Engel and David Senjem, thank you for bringing them to America and over to our program.
Jane, thank you so much for having us today.
Okay, and thank you for your interest in the topic of renewable energy. If it's cheaper and if it's more present and doesn't leave us as vulnerable, I think we should look at it. So thank you all. Good night. We'll be with you again next week, same time, same channel. Have a good week and a good night.